Welcome to the brush. This is the last final part on the video of painting up the Leman Russ tank. What I'm starting to do at the moment is painting in the very front face of the sponson, turning it so I can get the back of it. I need some more paint on my brush. So this is the very final step. We're literally at the stage where we could have stopped more or less at the previous step. This is just some tidying up and finishing off. We've got the gold Aquila done. We've got the vent covers mostly done. We just need to come over them with a little bit of skull crusher brass just to finish them off. This literally is the final step before we see if we can push it a little bit further. You wouldn't have to go as far as I'm going to take this. Just try and make it look a little better. So at the moment, one of the issues is the tank looks a little bit clean. So again, carefully trying to paint the face of it. So that's the sponsons painted in. I'm not going to do anything else to them. I'm not even going to put another wash over them. They're tight enough as it is. If I put any more washes onto them, they'll start to stick in place and become a very difficult to move. And you're going to see drag marks and the like anyway. So the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some skull crusher brass. I'm just going to try and gently attack in one direction these vent covers. So try and take as much of the pigment off the brush as I can. This is literally going to be the very final thing that I do before we pushing it. So just to the centre of them. Doesn't have to be across the whole part. And again, I'm not too worried if I get a little bit. We could push some typhus corrosion around there. I'll hide that. So this is where we're going to take it that extra step. I've got some typhus corrosion. And rather than mixing this with water, I'm again going to use some Lamium medium. Part of the reason is I know that the typhus corrosion is a texture paint and that the particles are supposed to be in suspension in it. If I use something as thin as water, I wonder whether or not I will break the suspension of the material. So I'm going to use this brush. It probably will ruin it somewhat. In fact, I'm not going to. I don't want to kill that brush. We'll use the one we were using the other day. This is my other small dry brush, the one that's flared out. So I'm mixing more or less 50-50 typhus corrosion with some Lamium medium. And what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to do it on all of the track. I'm not going to bother with the underside. Yeah, it's a case of, unless you're flipping the tank on its back, you're not going to see that. So what I will do is start at the front here. I'm just going to slop a little bit of this on to a section. and come back in with another brush with some water on it. And just blend it to the sides. So do a section at a time rather than putting it all on, because otherwise it will start to dry off. So that's there. So down the top, down the back of the track, we'll do in one step. Again, wetted brush along the edge. Across the top edge. If you get any on the bodywork, don't matter, just blend it with a wet brush. So we've got the very back corner of the track due, so I'm just going to load that on there. I'm not even going to worry about blending that out at the moment. So back to the front of the tracks, to the front on the underside, we go down here, up to there, wet the brush. We've used up pretty much all of the typhus corrosion that we had. We said there were a couple of little bits that we were a little bit like meh about, so I'm going to dab a jab in there and dab a jab of this in here on the back, and pause with that brush a sec. Just blend this out. On here, do the same thing with the water. Come in with a brush wet, and then draw it away from where your pigment is towards the outer side edge. I'll try and hold it at a bit of an angle so you can see it a bit better. So I'm literally dragging the wetted brush away from where the pigment is towards the top surfaces. And if necessary, if I think there's too much, just taking that excess away. As I say, that's just taking it that little bit further, making it look a little less completely clean off the factory floor. Again, where we've got a few little mistakes, I'm going to get a little bit more of this. Need some more medium than this. Sorry, I'm holding the brush in my teeth. So we just want to play this out a little bit further. So what we're going to do, on the back here where you've got the hatch cover and you've got the engines, I'm going to put some here and here, and on the backs down the back of the tracks, on the underside where it would flick up a little bit. And then I'm going to take our wet brush and just come in and literally the wet bit towards the pigment in this case, which seems counterintuitive that you're wetting the surface and then pulling it into the paint. But what you're trying to do is get that pigment to blend in to what you've already done without it looking false. And if I draw it into it, I'm wetting the surface and it will fade out. If I do that, I'm dragging the pigment out and I'm then having to blend. What I'm doing this way is there might be residue on there already, but I'm effectively fading it in. So that just fades that rear hatch section. Now you may consider that I'm about to ruin the look at this tank. I think it just makes it look a little bit better. But just along this very bottom edge, I'm going to come in with some of this typhus corrosion. Wet the brush, and again, I'm going towards the pigment now. I want gravity to affect it so that it runs heaviest towards the bottom. And if it looks patchy, well, mud will. It doesn't matter. And that's where it's at the moment. So I'm going to turn it around. I'm just doing the other side. So again, just along the bottom. And if you made some mistakes, you can patch over it with the typhus corrosion. I'll do that on that point to make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. Again, flicking the water down to meet the typhus corrosion. And yeah, I'm cleaning the brush, not cleaning the brush, doing a mixture of both, trying to make it look more random rather than I'm just painting a line and blending it out. The effect will in the end look a little bit more authentic. So that's that side of the tank. Now again, I'm not too happy with some of these vent covers at the top. There's a couple of little spills and stuff, and again there's a hatch there, so I'm just going to slop some of this typhus corrosion around on the top here, as that will hide any of those little mistakes quite happily. And I'm going to take the brush, not completely wet, just a little bit damp, just smudge out the edges. Trying to work out what that is. What are you on my tank? Apologies. I have no idea what that was. It looked like some little bug or something. We're almost done. The tracks look a little bit dirty now. We're almost there. I'm not going to put any typhus corrosion around the gun barrel on the tank. What I am going to do is put some 2 thin coats iron oxide in patches. I may even put a few dabs of this on some of the track cleats. So just to show you what this is first, this is Duncan Road's 2 thin coats iron oxide, and this stuff is beautiful for doing rust work. So I'm not going to need that brush. So I'm literally going to load my brush and just literally at the back of the barrel, a few places, and just literally, I'm not going to have to add very much more than this at all to it. To get something I'm sufficiently happy with. That'll do for the barrel. And a couple of little places on the sides. We've got this bit here. We've Another one on the other side. I'm going to keep the las cannon looking slightly newer and shinier. I'm not going to do anything else to it. I'm just going to leave it plain. So a couple of these track cleats, not every one of them, just one or two here and there. And I'm literally going to call that for the iron oxide. The very last thing I'm going to do, and again, I'm making a shortcut with this. I'm going to use some Talisar blue. I've got a lens on there. I'm just going to paint this in blue. So Talisar blue is a contrast paint. If I leave it to dry standing upright, it should give us quite an interesting effect on that, and that will be the tank finished. I don't need to do anything more to it. My friend has asked me, can I paint up a set of Swanson guns for it? So I've got the bolters, the flamers, the melters and the plasmas to paint for it, so we can swap them out. But that is essentially the tank done. Correction. There's a little bit left on the barrel that I haven't done. I've just noticed. So I'll do that now. So inside the barrel, just give a coat. That's the end of the barrel done. I just spotted that and saying that was the final thing. So I'm going to leave that to dry that way up, so the Talisar blue dries flat, and I will see you in the next video. I have been the Addict to the Brush. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe or leave a comment. Help the channel grow. Thank you for watching.